I'm going to continue reading from Where the Red Fern Grows. I'm on page 75. If you have the hardcover that looks like this, that's the one we were using in our classroom. So I'll begin. I'm going to post 2 a day so that we can catch up a little bit, or we'll never finish this book. With a whipped dog look on her face and with her tail between her legs, little Ann came over. She wouldn't even look at me. Old Dan walked slowly around behind the tree and hid himself. He peeped around the big trunk and looked at me. The message I read in his friendly eyes tore at my heart. He seemed to be saying, "You told us to put one in a tree and you would do the rest." With tears in my eyes, I looked again at the big sycamore. A wave of anger came over me. Gritting my teeth, I said, "I don't care how big you are. I'm not going to let my dogs down. I told them if they put a raccoon in a tree, I would do it the rest. I would do the rest, and I'm going to. I'm going to cut you down. I don't care if it takes me a whole year." I walked over and sank my axe as deep as I could in the smooth white bark. My dogs threw a fit. Little Ann started turning in circles. I could hear her pleased whimpering cry. Old Dan bawled and started gnawing on the big tree's trunk. First, it was easy. My axe was sharp and the chips flew. 2 hours later, things were different. My arms felt like two dead grapevines, and my back felt like someone had pulled a plug out of one end of it and drained all the sap out. While taking a breather, I saw I was making more progress than I thought I would. The cut I had started was a foot deep, but I still had a long way to go. Sitting on their rears, my dogs waited and watched. I smiled at the look on their faces. Every time I stopped chopping, they would come over. While little Ann washed the sweat from my face, old Dan would inspect my work. He seemed to be pleased with what he saw, for he always wagged his tail. Gee, I wonder how little Ann wiped the sweat off his face. What do you think? Probably licked his face, right? Along about daylight, I got my second wind, and I really did make the chips fly. This burst of energy cost me dearly. By sunup, I was so stiff I could hardly move. My hands and my arms were numb. My back screamed with pain. I could go no further. Sitting down, I leaned back again against the big tree and fell asleep. Little Ann woke me up by washing my face. I groaned with the torture of getting to my feet. Every muscle in my body seemed to be tied in a knot. I was thinking of going down to the river to wash my face in the cool water when I heard a loud whoop. I recognized my father's voice. I whooped to let him know where I was. Papa was riding out our red mule. After he rode up, he just sat there and looked me over. He glanced at my dogs and at the big sycamore. I saw the worry leave his face. He straightened his shoulders, pursed his lips, and blew out a little air. He reminded me of someone who had just dropped a heavy load. In a slow, calm voice, he asked, "Are you all right, Billy?" "Yes, Papa," I said. "Oh, I'm a little tired and sleepy. Otherwise, I'm fine." He slid mule's back. He slid from the mule's back and came over. "Your mother's worried," he said. "When you didn't come in, we didn't know what had happened. You should have come home." I didn't know what to say. I bowed my head and looked at the ground. I was trying hard to choke back the tears when I felt his hand on my shoulder. "I'm not scolding," he said. "We just thought maybe you had an accident or something." I looked up and saw a smile on his face. He turned again and looked at the tree. He said, "This is the sycamore you call the big tree, isn't it?" I nodded my head. "Is there a raccoon in it?" he asked. "There sure is, Papa," I said. "He's in that hollow limb. See, the one way up there. That's why I couldn't come home. I was afraid he'd get away." "Maybe you think he's there," Papa said. "I believe I'd make sure before I cut down a tree that big." "Oh, he's there all right," I said. "My dogs weren't 10 feet behind him when he went up it." "Why are you so determined to get this raccoon?" Papa asked.